Welcome to today's Explainer. Today, we're diving deep into a real masterclass on Machiavelli's concept of secularism. If you're a political science student, or maybe you're gearing up for your UPSC exams, listen up. We're going to give you the exact academic framework you need to completely deconstruct this topic and craft a high-scoring, absolutely perfect answer.
Here's how we're breaking it down today. We'll start with the secularism paradox, then look at methodological versus institutional secularism. After that, we'll cover politics, religion, and ethics, followed by scholarly views and evidence. Then we'll hit the Marsilius counterpoint, and finally, we'll wrap it all up by building the perfect model answer together.
All right, let's jump right into part one, the secularism paradox.
Now, you might be wondering, what exactly is the paradox here? Well, it's the fact that Machiavelli never actually used the word secularism. Why? Because the word literally didn't exist yet. It wasn't until 1851 that a British writer named George Holyoake actually coined the term. So when we talk about Machiavelli's secularism today, scholars are retrospectively taking a 19th century label and slapping it onto a 16th century thinker's ideas. It's a super important academic nuance, and you definitely want to include it right at the start of your analysis.
Moving right along to our second point, methodological over institutional secularism.
The crucial distinction you've got to make here is that Machiavelli was not advocating for institutional secularism. He wasn't sitting there trying to draft constitutional documents to officially separate the church and the state like we see in modern democracies. No, what he championed was methodological secularism. This means his entire goal was to free the study of politics from theological frameworks. He wanted us to treat politics as an autonomous science, completely independent of religious doctrines.
Let's unpack that a bit further in part 3, Politics, Religion, and Ethics.
A lot of people ask, did Machiavelli just hate religion? Absolutely not. But he did view it through a purely pragmatic lens. He saw religion as instrumentum regni, basically a highly convenient tool of a state. He didn't want to abolish religion. He just subordinated it to state interests. To him, religion was an incredibly useful mechanism to maintain social order and keep the masses obedient. In his playbook, politics was always positioned above religion.
And to take it a step further, he deliberately divorced politics from traditional ethics by introducing the concept of necessità. For Machiavelli, political necessity has its own valid internal logic. If a specific action is necessary for the survival or the strength of the state, well, it's justified in and of itself. He completely separated state actions from those traditional moral constraints you'd find in a religious text.
Which brings us to our fourth section, scholarly views and evidence.
The impact of these ideas was massive, and you can really see it in the academic consensus. Heavy hitters like George Sabine give Machiavelli the credit for fundamentally establishing politics as an autonomous scientific field. And then you have Friedrich Meinecke. Meinecke noted that this intense focus on state interest essentially birthed the foundational concept of raison d'etat, or the reason of state. Machiavellianism, academically speaking, is the absolute origin point of putting the state's ultimate logic above literally everything else.
But how did the people living in his own time feel about all this? Well, here is your rock-solid empirical evidence of just how radical his theories were. In 1559, the Catholic Church officially slapped Machiavelli's writings on the Index Librorum Prohibitorum, the list of prohibited books. This proves beyond a shadow of a doubt that the religious authorities back then absolutely recognized his methodological secularism as a direct, profound challenge to their power.
Okay, let's look at part 5, the Marsilius counterpoint.
If we zoom out and look at the historical timeline, a really fascinating story emerges. Way back in 1324, a thinker named Marsilius of Padua wrote a text called Defensor Pacis, where he actually proposed separating church and state long before Machiavelli was even born. So Machiavelli wasn't actually the first guy to have this initial idea. However, what Machiavelli did in the 1500s was take that idea and give it a highly systematic, practical form. Dropping this Marsilius counterpoint into your exam is a major flex. It's a valuable detail that will absolutely make your academic analysis stand out from the crowd.
And that leads us perfectly into our final section, the perfect model answer. A flawless 10-mark comment-style answer on this topic shouldn't be some rambling essay. It needs to be punchy and hit 4 very specific dimensions. Let's actually build and present a complete 150-word model answer together right now, piece by piece.
Okay, step 1. Your opening sentence should read something like this. Although George Holyoake coined the term in 1851, scholars retrospectively apply secularism to Machiavelli to describe a methodological rather than institutional separation.
Boom. Right out of the gate, you've instantly established the Hollyoake paradox and shown that Machiavelli stripped political analysis of its theological framework.
Step 2. The next sentence builds out that core logic. You'll write, he viewed religion pragmatically as instrumentum regni, a tool subordinated to the state, while introducing necessita as the autonomous logic for political action. This is brilliant because it seamlessly integrates those key terms and perfectly links back to Friedrich Meinecke's concept of raison d'etat.
Moving to step 3, it's time to drop your evidence. Right. The radical nature of this methodological secularism is historically evidenced by the Catholic Church banning his works on the 1559 Index Librum Prohibitorum. Doing this proves to the examiner that you aren't just theorizing, you have the hard historical backing to support your claims.
Finally, step 4. Conclude your answer with this really powerful synthesis. Ultimately, while Marsilius of Padua proposed church-state separation earlier in 1324, Machiavelli's true legacy is systematizing a functional secularism that prioritized state survival above all. Listen, nailing that specific phrasing, functional secularism, is the absolute most valuable part of your conclusion. It ties a neat bow on the whole thing.
Grasping that subtle shift from institutional to functional secularism really is the absolute key to mastering this entire topic. It completely reframes how we evaluate classical political thinkers. So I'll leave you with this to ponder. By understanding this difference, how will this analytical framework change the way you approach your next political science exam? Good luck synthesizing these concepts, and remember to keep utilizing clear frameworks like this to sharpen your understanding.